A viral video draws national attention to the Haitian migrant crisis in a small Ohio town. Jack Posobiec will be on to tell us what's really going on behind the scenes. BlazeTV host Stu Bergier will join us to survey the state of the presidential race heading into the first Trump-Harris debate. And Papa John Shatner will join us and tell us why his employees are even more afraid of Harris's presidency than the Biden administration. We have those stories and so much more. Blaze News Tonight starts right now. Welcome to the chaos. I'm Jill Savage. Today is Monday, September 9th. Earlier today, Ohio Attorney General David Yost announced that he has ordered his office to research legal ways to stop the government from sending an unlimited number of migrants to Ohio communities. So here to discuss is Jack Posobiec, senior editor of Human Events, and of course, Matthew Peterson, the editor-in-chief of Blaze News. So Jack, let's just start with this. How big of a problem is this in Ohio on the ground right now?
Well, it's a massive problem. Again, you're talking about disparities of scale here, where a town of only 60,000 people is then given and really seen an importation, its influx from the federal and state government, bringing in 20,000 Haitians who, and by the way, this wasn't done overnight. This wasn't done under the cover of darkness. These people were brought in by the feds. The state government totally backstopped the entire thing. Governor Mike DeWine and his wife, who has this very interesting, I guess, fascination with Haiti. She's constantly talking about it. They have a school down there that they named after their daughter. This really deep, intense connection between the DeWines and Haiti for some reason, 1,600 miles away in the heartland of Ohio. And you also see, for years, they prepared the way, paving it for the way for the society. So using community organizers and healthcare workers and social workers, and even I was digging up tweets the other day from the school superintendent there in Springfield, talking about his efforts to bring more Haitians into the community. This is 2-3 years ago. And actually, when I started bringing up the tweets today, he first locked his Twitter account, then he deleted that tweet. I believe as of right now, he has deleted his entire Twitter account, all because we were highlighting the work that he's done over the past few years to prepare the citizens and the town folk of, and this is just one town, by the way, this is just one example of a town that has been completely terraformed with migrants via the federal government. And oh, by the way, guess who paid for it? All of us did through federal tax dollars.
Yeah, people need to realize this is happening throughout the country. Yes. And this is just one example that has been turned up. But let's go into that example. I mean, there's two reasons for this possibly that we've chatted about. One is this is about punishing Trump supporters. This is targeting an area of the country where they know people support Donald Trump, and it's a sort of punishment for them. The other, and these are not mutually exclusive, which is what we've both seen over the years, is that whenever this happens in a specific location, yeah, the libs will come on, the superintendent, they want them all to come, and it's all going to be great. But there's usually a corporate interest in the back of it, and these people are working as indentured servants somewhere, in that community.
So what we've discovered in digging into this is there's a Japanese auto parts manufacturer, there's a microchip hub, and there's a few processing plants, a few things like this. And essentially what's going on is they've created, and you might say, well, that's great. If all of these industries are coming in, well, why don't the people of Springfield just go work there? You have the 60,000. What do you need the migrants for? Here's how it works. The migrant refugee resettlement organizations create what's called something along the lines of a hidden job market. And the hidden job market means that when those, and the companies all know this is going on as well because they love it, because when the companies hire migrants, you get money, subsidies from the federal government in form of tax breaks or even in the form sometimes direct payments from the federal government because, oh, you help the refugees. That's why you see them hanging up refugees welcome. That's why you see there's a huge map of Haiti up in one of these things where they can talk about where everybody's from. And Mike DeWine is so excited about it. Again, it's all backstopped by federal money, and they create the hidden job market because they'll go to those recruiters. So you're talking about like, how come I didn't see this on, Indeed.com or, one of those just job placements sites? And because they won't put it there, they'll go directly to the refugee resettlement organizations. And in many cases, you'll see places like Catholic Charities, Lutheran Charities will do this as well. And they'll say, oh, we have these jobs coming up. So they'll work with their private recruiters to make sure that it's migrants who get those jobs. So why? The federal dollars can flow in behind.
We know Kamala Harris is, of course, going to be a fan of this, and she previously has bragged about the program that has brought billions of Haitians to the U.S. Let's take a listen.
That is why, also, starting with our administration, we gave TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitian migrants, 55,000. And then more recently, we extended temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian migrants for that very reason, that they need support, they need protection.
Jack, they just need support. They need protection.
Right. So 100,000 Haitians. And keep in mind, this is all predicated on the assassination of the Haitian president back in 2021, where he got knocked off by a couple of U.S.-backed Colombian mercenaries. And the United States is totally behind the government of Colombia. He gets knocked off by the Colombian mercenaries. Again, they killed the president of Haiti. So Haiti spirals into chaos. You get gang warfare. You get cannibal gang warfare with this guy Barbecue, prisons that are being totally let out. And then all of a sudden they say, oh, there's this terrible crisis. Whatever are we to do? Well, we'll welcome them up here. We'll bring them in here absolutely en masse. So when I say 20,000, that's just in the town of Springfield, Ohio. She's talking about it, extending these protections out to 100,000 for other Haitians, and they want to continue it because it's a multifaceted operation. So the business owners who donate to Republicans get the cheap labor. This is the Mike DeWine types. Then, of course, the Democrats get the voters. Once eventually, we know they're all going to have voting status because the SAVE Act isn't on the books yet. So they're going to be voting at some point. And where are they being sent? Where are they being sent? They're being sent not only to Trump-supporting counties, but states that could nominally swing for the Democrats if they were repopulated with more and more migrants who we know predominantly vote blue. So what would you do then? Well, you'd send them to the Trumpiest states in order to try to reshape the election field to better your presidential chances.
Let's talk about the explosion of news on this, or should I say memes, in the last 24 hours.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't make memes. I heard those could be misinformation.
That's
true.
Misinformation and disinformation was the top point at Davos this year.
Yeah,
Sometimes I share them to warn people, right? And you do this too. You warn people.
What I'll do, yes, if I encounter one that is just so horrific, I'll post it so that other people know that it's out there, so they'll look out for it, so they'll know not to post it themselves.
So what has happened is an explosion of memes with Donald Trump being the rescuer of the pets of Springfield, because there are reports and there are people in the town talking about these migrants.
I just thought about something.
Yeah.
The town's called Springfield. Where are the Simpsons memes?
Yeah.
We gotta get the Simpsons involved in this. We need Bart and Lisa fighting.
Saving the cat.
And they have a cat, right? And the dog is the same as little helper.
Oh yeah.
Snowball the cat.
I mean, there's
Snowball 2.
I'm gonna get on Grok right. Anyway, we have to talk about this because you see a lot of people talking about what the residents of the town are talking about, which is that pets and other animals, right, have been killed. Maybe a cat eaten even by someone, right?
Well, and it wasn't. And by the way, the
Ohio,
media is saying, "Oh, well, the police say we don't have records. The police say we need records." So Jack Posobiec and Matt Peterson, JD Vance made it all up and said, "No. We didn't start this. The townspeople went and told you this what was going on."
Yeah, that's what I want to ask you about, because what I see happening here is a classic situation in which they're trying to get out in front of something that they know is very dangerous to them. And we were just talking about this. You were just talking about this before we went on air. I mean, talk about that to our audience, because it's clearly happening right now. I mean, just lay out how this is going to go down.
And Jill just mentioned, of course, that when when they declare something misinformation, what you will get then is the social media fact check. And the purpose of a social media fact check, whether it's from Pointer or factcheck.org or Lead Stories with Alan Duke, who loves taking his Chinese communist money from TikTok, that what they will do then is every time you make one of those videos, if the fact check is out there, every time you post one of those videos, you clip one of them, you want to put it on your social media, oh, boom, it gets hit with a fact check. So Instagram takes it down, TikTok takes it down. Twitter through the community notes does typically still allow things to spread, but Facebook and all the others, they will, what it does, it doesn't get it deleted necessarily, but it will stop the spread of these images and it will stop the spread of the video. So you can have a video of a local, and by the way, we saw this at the East Palestine. We saw this, of course, throughout COVID in 2020, that someone could be telling you that this happened to my family. We went to the doctors and my kid came back and he was like this, or we went and this is how COVID affected me, or this is how something else affected me in 2020. And so East Palestine, we're getting these smells from the river. We're getting these smells from the train derailment that was then exploded. Again, which, by the way, also Mike DeWine. And so it was declared misinformation. The EPA came in, the FDA came in, the NTSB came in. But what was great, though, was people held the line in East Palestine, and that's what we need to do again here. And say, no, these people are telling you the truth. They know what's going on. And then in East Palestine, it actually turned into a meme because they kept saying the water is safe. You remember this? They kept saying the water is safe. And then so when the EPA officials would come in, they would scoop up some water from the river and walk up to them and say, have a drink then. So go ahead and have a drink. Here you go. Why don't you try it? And the fact that they wouldn't is how you know the government's lying to you. But of course, right, you're also seeing the weaponization of misinformation to create censorship of stories that would be damaging politically to the face of the regime.
Now, Jack, real quick, because I know you have to go. I was able to go see you speak in Fort Worth over the weekend. And one of the things that has stuck with me from listening to you was your push. It's 8 weeks. Yes. Until the election. There is so much to be done. This is the biggest 8 weeks, basically, of our lives. So I would love just to hear you real quick before you have to go, just kind of enlighten our audience on the importance of this time.
There's a lot of things going on right now, and there's always going to be different stories happening. There's going to be different arguments online, and are we going to talk about some historical debate about, I have this thing, and I'm in this camp, and I'm in that camp, or somebody makes a post, and you have to do your hot takes. And I get it that sort of people live in the hot take economy now, and so are your stocks going up, your stocks going down, whatever. Fine, like I get all that, but we have an election in 8 weeks, and an election that could determine the actual trajectory of Western civilization. And if you are not on the line traveling around the country or in my capacity, I'm very blessed. I have the ability to travel. And so I'm coming to Texas. I'm going up to Pennsylvania tomorrow for the debate, but I'm going to be going out there, making sure I register voters, making sure I get people to do early balloting. We're going to be doing a series of events. We're even doing trainings. We're doing all sorts of stuff as much as possible in order to, I'm doing one of them on the phone, like on the way to the airport today, just because you need to get active. And that's all I'm saying. You need to get active, whether it's locally, whether it's in a swing state that's nearby. And by the way, so many of the organizations out there, Chase the Vote, PHAs, or Turning Point Action, or Scott Pressler, Early Vote Action, they have the ability for whatever state you're in. You can call in or text in to swing states and actually see if people have put in their ballots yet and done all of this. And so, yeah, we can have these academic debates. I love them. Like I'm very guilty of all of this, but unless you're actually turning it into something that helps in the election, then you're kind of just wasting time with distractions, because again, we have 8 weeks, and then after that, it's done. And guess what? If they steal an election, you're never gonna unsteal an election. It's done. It's done November 5th. And everything else afterwards is just, I'm sorry, it's just complaining. So I don't want to complain. I want to leave everything on the field right now. And there's honor in that. And it does honor to God. It does honor to God to fight with all that you have in the last 8 weeks. That's right. By the way, we're even putting out another book. My publisher would be upset if I didn't mention it. We're even putting out another book because the media By the way, two inexplicable things happened where just a couple of weeks ago, the president of the United States, or Donald Trump, former president of the United States, was shot, by the way, in the head. And then 9 days after that, the current president of the United States dropped out of the race. And inexplicably, the media just stopped talking about both of these events. They're just like, oh, yeah, no, just some stuff that happened. But now Kamala, yeah, we really care about Kamala. So we're doing the new book about all of this and the intrinsic connected nature of what happened during those 9 days in July. And if you understand the connection between the gunshot hitting purchase with Donald Trump and Joe Biden dropping out or being forced out in a palace coup is what actually happened. To unpack those layers is to actually understand the true nature of the system under which we live.
Promo code POSO.
Promo code POSO.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys.
Stu Burguiere and Chris Bedford will join us to tell you what to watch out for with the Electoral College coming up just ahead. There's nothing better at the end of a long day than sitting down in your favorite easy chair with a glass of your favorite whiskey. And hey, if it turns out that with every glass you're helping to support a great American cause, doesn't it make it that much better? It's time to chart your own course with Flying Ace whiskeys from Craft Co. Inspired by generations of American aviators and proudly made right here in the United States, Flying Ace is not only amazing whiskey, they're also committed to supporting our troops and their families with their partnership with Folds of Honor. They're providing scholarships to families of fallen American soldiers and the disabled, and these scholarships allow the families to begin to chart their own new course after experiencing great sacrifice. Flying Ace whiskeys are American proud because they're American made, and they're American proud because they're helping to support our heroes and their families. So don't wait around. Today's the day to get your own and see what the hype is all about. Buy online at flyingacespirits.com. Use code America to get free shipping. That's flyingacespirits.com. Code America for free shipping. It's a big week for American politics with Congress returning from their summer break. Speaker Johnson is preparing to fight for the SAVE Act, and Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are set to debate tomorrow night. So Chris Bedford, senior editor for politics and Washington correspondent for Blaze Media, wrote about the significance of this week in his latest piece at theblaze.com. And he joins us now to break it all down, along with Blaze TV host Stu Burguiere, who will be breaking down all of the Electoral College for us coming up as well. But Chris, let's start with you. Let's set the scene for the week. What should we be watching out for?
Well, there's a couple things coming down, and I'll start with the smaller stuff that's still important. The House of Representatives is back in session. The House and the Senate have been gone for over a month now on vacation, or at least back in their home districts. I know there's plenty still to do. So now there's going to be a bunch of votes coming through, and Speaker Johnson is set for his first showdown yet with Mitch McConnell, the head of the Republicans in the Senate. That's because Johnson is backing what most Republicans want, what Donald Trump wants, what even the donors want, by attaching the SAVE Act, which would block or make it actually more difficult for illegal aliens and non-citizens to vote in American elections, attaching that to a short-term spending bill that would cover government spending into the new year and the next administration. Now, Mitch McConnell doesn't like that. He doesn't want the fight. He doesn't want to risk a shutdown, but we've talked about it a lot of times in the show. I think it's a pretty strong move by Johnson. And we'll see, of course, if he ends up just saying, oh, we gave it our best shot. Congress loves to do that. And then just throw up his hands and say, sorry, guys, the Democrats are in charge of my slim Republican majority. He does that a lot. So it'll be interesting to see where that pressure comes down. But of course, the main event, which I can't wait to cover live with y'all tomorrow, is going to be the debate. I mean, Kamala Harris is someone who hasn't been out in public. She's done one, I think, 16 or 17-minute video that was interview that was with her VP. Everything else has been scripted. Just today is the first day she's even posted any kind of policies to her page, and most of them are just attacking Donald Trump. The media has tried to sell her as some kind of agent of change, but she doesn't actually seem to have ideas or be willing to go out there. She's far from, they're trying to make her into a Barack Obama, but she's not Barack Obama by any stretch. So Tuesday night's debate, we'll actually see her out there. We'll see how she performs. But don't expect her to implode on stage. She's capable. She's been trained enough to not do as poorly as she did in 2020 in the primaries. But I do expect that she's going to need a rock star night because she's starting to sag in these polls.
Chris, on the budget stuff, is there any reason to believe this isn't just like fantasy league trading? Like it's just not real? I look at the SAVE Act, it would be something that obviously would be good for the country. It's obviously a good thing, but we've talked to Mike Lee about it, talked to Chip Roy about it. They're really excited about pushing this, but at the end of the day, the moderates in the House are not going to allow a shutdown no matter what. The Democrats have to know that, right?
I think the Democrats are going to try and push that. Here's the deal what they have, though. The shutdown right now, the moderates caucus that was really anti-shutdown to begin with. There's a lot of the guys who are around the D.C. Beltway area, representing parts of Northern Virginia, for example, who got their butts kicked when there was a shutdown because there are so many federal employees coming back. That stuff is kind of gone. A lot of those Republican districts, in part because of these fights and also because of the expanding government workforce, they don't have the same say that they used to have. And here's another interesting thing that makes us different from the Obamacare fights or other fights that you've seen in the House of Representatives in the past, is this is a very popular message. This is popular with Democrats. It's popular with independents. It's popular with moderates. It's popular generally across the board. Democrats are stuck in the difficult messaging battle. Now, they have more access to bigger guns and corporate media, so that, of course, is always going to help. And Mitch McConnell's saying, listen, I don't want any fights. And like you said, being disappointed is pretty standard when you follow this sort of stuff in D.C. But the messaging is so strong, and the caucus actually so much more unified. Their ability, for example, to make money off of forcing this vote, to be able to fundraise off of it and say, Democrats want illegal aliens to vote. What are you going to do? Will be tough. And it puts a lot of Democrats, especially some of the vulnerable ones in the Senate, in very difficult positions.
All right, gentlemen, let's get nerdy with the Electoral College, shall we? Because Nate Silver has put out his latest bulletin, and it actually has Donald Trump winning the Electoral College 312 to 226. Now, Stu, I watched the Stu Does America election special where you had your own chalkboard. It wasn't even Glenn's chalkboard. It's your own chalkboard that you had out doing the Electoral College. So break this down for us. What do you think of what Nate Silver is putting out? Is it correct? Do we think that Trump has this kind of momentum right now?
Nate Silver's an interesting guy because he's been around for a long time. He goes back to, he was at 538, which was with ABC at the end and Disney. Before that, he was with the New York Times. Before that, he was just an independent blogger and just doing that. And I remember reading his stuff way back. In fact, he was one of the first people that I ever read that called the possibility of a Tea Party revolution back in 2010. He was back in 2009 talking about that. And he got kind of famous because in 2012, he said Barack Obama was going to win, so all the Democrats liked him. And then in 2016, he said that Donald Trump was going to lose. And so all the Democrats got mad at him because he got that one wrong, even though he was much more, again, he's giving a probabilistic prediction. So I think he was something like 34%, something like that, or 28%. It was 28% chance that Trump was going to win, which was higher than almost every other projection at that time. And obviously he wasn't, I wouldn't say right on that, but he was closer to being right. And then 2020, he predicted Biden, and Biden won. He likes to go against the grain a little bit. I think he likes irritating mainstream media types, even though he's a Democrat. He's no Trump fan by any means. His prediction is, I would say, of all the stuff that I read from all these guys, he's about as optimistic for Trump right now as anybody is. He is maybe even a little bit more optimistic than I am, honestly, at this point. He says, I think it's 64.8% chance today of Donald Trump winning the election. Part of this is the way his model works around basically, Kamala Harris had this kind of big rise that we all kind of remember, this boomlet that after the Joe Biden thing disintegrated. They put Kamala in. She has this nice month of positive media. She rises way up. The way his model works, and most of them do, they have a convention bounce estimate. So they assume a 2 or 3 point bounce for the candidate during a convention. You get all this glowing media coverage. Well, she had just come out of a month of glowing media coverage, so there really wasn't any more room for her to bounce. When she didn't bounce up at that period, his model said, well, wait a minute, why isn't she going up? This must be negative for her. So his model adjusted up the chances of Donald Trump winning because they didn't see that bump. I'd argue the bump kind of already happened. If you take the bump out of his projections, Trump, I think, is still a very slight favorite. So what he's seeing is, I think, what the polls are showing as well, which is Kamala is known for this, right? In 2019, she had two little boomlets. One that happened right when she launched. She had a really good launch. Crowds everywhere, big speeches, very well produced. When she's in that mode, she's actually somewhat effective. When she can be very much on script and really manage that process, she's not terrible. The second one came after she had a very rehearsed moment in the debate, calling Joe Biden a racist, which is just hilarious. That's how she got that second boom. And she moved in prediction markets. She actually led the field 2 times in 2019, led the field ahead of Bernie Sanders, ahead of Joe Biden. Both times, as we remember, they collapsed. The second one, thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, memorably. But when you look at the way this is going, it's not surprising that she would start to fade. There's just no meat here, right? You guys have seen it. She's not saying anything.
She finally put policies out on her website last night.
I missed it. I was so mad. We were talking about today, and I missed the policy bait. She's finally got one. But I mean, almost all of her policies are things that she's essentially trying to push herself to the right. And Bernie Sanders said this over the weekend. Ed Markey said it a few weeks ago. She is releasing, she's not flip-flopping. These are not pure flip-flops. What she's doing is saying, I pragmatically want to win this election, so I'm going to hide the left-wing positions I have and float out through representatives these more moderate positions that actually care about border security. It's a lie. She is the same person she was in 2019. That's how she will govern if she's elected.
So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. And certainly I agree that there is no there there. And when there's no there there, there's a certain element that you just can't hide. She's not someone who can hide the fact that there's nothing to hide. Some people can. I don't think she can. But nonetheless, what I want to hear in the time we have left from both of you is thoughts about the very complicated question of polling itself, right? I mean, in 2020, Trump was ahead, or was he?
Right.
So, I mean, do you think that we've gotten better at polling or worse? And can we trust the polls?
What I always like to say about the polls is people want them to be these things that tell us specifics. And what they do is tell us generalities. And people hate that. So, I mean, really, like, we just expect too much out of them. A poll that is really valuable to tell us, for example, this is a close election. It is not valuable to tell us whether Donald Trump or Kamala Harris is up by a half a point. It's just not going to be that specific. Now, 2022 actually was a really good year for polls. It had a smaller error than some other years. 2020, as we all know, right, was a year where it was Biden was heavily favored and the election was super close. 2016, Hillary Clinton was very favored. Donald Trump wound up winning. But what we forget sometimes, 2022 was the opposite. It went toward Democrats, the polling error. 2012 was the same thing. Mitt Romney was right there in that election and wound up losing in an election that wasn't memorably close. Those polling errors bounce around. There's a lot of things you can look at. We kind of have a new tool we're going to be releasing here in the next week or so that kind of tries to take all this stuff and put it into one number, because now there are like election models and polling averages and prediction markets and all that. And we're going to put all that into one model so that everyone can kind of understand it as easily as possible, at least understand what these polls are saying. To your point, though, every single year it gets harder to poll. Every single year there's less money to spend on it. Every single year people don't want to participate in these polls. It gets more and more difficult to get accurate representations as to what's going on.
All right, Bedford, give us your final thoughts. Bring us home your thoughts on polling.
I think Sue's exactly right. Probably knows more than I'll ever forget on this sort of thing, or forget more than I'll ever know on this sort of thing. And that's one of the things that he touched on at the very end there that you have to keep in mind when you're looking at focus groups, when you're looking at polls, is the people who answer focus groups are those people you pull off the road and you can get to sit in a room for 8 hours in exchange for pizza. So they're not exactly representative of a lot of other folks that you might see around the country, a lot of people who are going to be voting. The one thing I would caution, though, on these polls and the optimism is a lot of them are real, especially Nate Silver's model here, and also Kornacki, who's been talking about this, really are counting on the shy Trump voters. Those people, how Donald Trump has actually won more votes each election than he has been polling for, and that they say would bode very well for the president, or former president. But this time, I think voters may be a little bit less shy. It's been 4 years of a president who promised to be a moderate and who's been as far left as you can basically get. We've got another 4 years that potentially coming for the country. And you see athletes, comedians, sports stars, or movie stars talking about Donald Trump in a positive light. I think some of the stigma may have actually finally broken, which would mean the polls could potentially be close to accurate.
Well, we will have full debate coverage for you tomorrow night. I will be hosting the early coverage. Stu Bergier got the short end of the stick. He gets to stay here all night, but we will be back here breaking it all down. So, gentlemen, thank you so much, and we'll be excited for the debate tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Papa John will tell us his least favorite ingredients in Kamala Harris's economic platform up next. You don't have to wait until November to vote. You can vote every single day with your dollar. At goodranchers.com, you can make a powerful choice to vote for American meat, support American agriculture, and make your voice heard for transparency in our food. Good Ranchers sources all of their meat exclusively from American farms, which not only supports local ranchers, but also ensures that you receive high-quality, American-raised meat with no antibiotics, no hormones, and no seed oils ever. So by shopping from goodranchers.com, you're making a statement about the kind of values that you stand for, values of quality, hard work, and dedication to American tradition. And right now, Good Ranchers is having a presidential promo. So for a limited time, you can get a free add-on for 4 whole years. That's good until the next election. And that means when you subscribe to any of their boxes, you can decide if you want to get extra plain chicken breast, Angus ground beef, Applewood smoked bacon, or wild-caught salmon in your order for 4 years. It's the perfect way to ensure that you always have high-quality American meat in your kitchen. Every cut is pre-trimmed, individually packed, and vacuum sealed, which makes your life easier. So there's no more messy meal prep or no more wasted food because of freezer burn or poor storage packaging. Good Ranchers helps you get the most flavor and value out of every single ounce of meat you buy, and that in this economy matters more and more each day. So don't miss out. Use my code Jill to claim this presidential promo worth over $1,200 and also claim $25 off your first box plus free shipping. And it's all 100% American meat to your family meals that's good until 2028. That's goodranchers.com, code Jill. Goodranchers.com, American meat delivered. Last week's disappointing jobs report is just one indicator of the economy under Biden and Harris. John Schnatter, founder of Papa John's Pizza, recently wrote an article for the Blaze.com explaining just how detrimental a Harris presidency could be for American workers. And John joins us now. So thanks so much for your time. But let's just start with like this big picture. What do you think the worst economic policy proposed by Kamala Harris is so far?
Oh my gosh, the worst economic policy. Let's say she follows the lines of day one for Biden. I think day one he cut off the Keystone and opened up the Nord Stream, and of course gave Russia and Iran the money to start all those wars over there. So the number one policy would be to continue to restrict drilling, and America runs on fossil fuels. America runs on natural gas and oil, and we got to open those spigots up for Donald Trump and get it back to where we were, which was energy independent. And that was a beautiful thing 3.5 years ago.
Let's talk about how you see things right now. I mean, just in terms of Bidenomics, the last few years. What are the policies that Biden and Kamala Harris have already put in place, and how are small business owners dealing with that?
Well, America works when America's working. And what makes America different than any other country in history is we have that middle class, that lower middle and upper middle class. And these policies of printing money, which is a future hidden tax on income, overregulation, the oil situation we talked about, the overspending and the deficit spending, which is the cause of inflation, leaving billions and tens of billions of equipment in Afghanistan and the mindset of money grows on tree, somebody's paying for that. And at the end of the day, the middle class pays a huge part of not over half of that dollars. So every policy they have, from the border with all the meth and child trafficking and the disaster they're doing to our cities and our communities, to the policies on oil, to the fiscal policies of printing money like drunk sailors, all those are detrimental. And most importantly, they're detrimental to the middle class. And the middle class is the backbone that makes America, America.
All right, let's dive into the middle class then, because we know that they have been squeezed, especially since COVID. So how do they go about and actually make sure that the middle class is growing and actually has a chance in America these days?
Well, I remember I started in '84 under Reaganomics. How lucky was I? I had Reagan. From 16 to 20, we had Trump. But the beautiful thing about Trump, he's a winner. If we have 5,000 stores, if Trump was a manager in a store, within 2 months, he'd be top 100. Within 3 months, he'd be top 50. Within 6 months, he'd be number 1 or 2. And within a year, he would buy me out and own the company. Donald Trump's a winner. The more importantly, besides his tenacity, his persistence, and his work ethic, his institutional knowledge to understand the inner workings of D.C. and how corrupt and evil these people are and how the system works and how to drain the swamp is his number one asset. He knows exactly what buttons to push, what levers to pull, how fast, when to pull them, and exactly how hard. And his policies will fix our country. It's going to be, if you go down and study Argentina and Chile, they've had freedom and they've had socialism 4 or 5 times in the last 100 years. And when socialism kicks in, their economy goes backwards and goes to heck in the handbasket. When they have freedom and entrepreneurship, their economy thrives. It's almost like it doesn't take 15, 20 years. It happens very quickly, both ways. In other words, look at what the Biden administration and Kamala Harris have done in less than 3 years. They've completely, inflation's up 20%. The earning power of the dollar for the worker is down 4%. Just the basics now are getting to the point where people are just scraping to get by. Credit card debt is up 50, 100, 150%, some crazy number. People are tapped out. So it's just amazing how quick they destroyed our military, they destroyed our border, they destroyed our economy, and they destroyed our prestige and respect on the world stage. And that's something that Donald Trump will put all those things, all those characteristics, all those attributes back in the Oval Office, and he'll do it so quick it'll blow your mind because he is a winner. He is persistent, and he knows what the heck he's doing because he has institutional knowledge.
John, in the time we have left, last question. Given everything you've said, which I think a lot of people in our audience agree with, right? What we've seen in the last 8 years is a lot of people who have wanted business but have been afraid to speak out and say anything, maybe sometimes even about what they know to be true when it comes to the economy. Given everything you've been through and accomplished, do you think there's more people that you see out there now who are founders, CEOs, et cetera, who are more pro-Trump now and more willing to speak out than there were in 2016?
Well, I sure hope so. The saying is, if you see evil and you do nothing about evil, you're evil. This can't go on. They are hurting the lifeblood, the people that wake up every day and work their tail off and make this country great, the middle class. They're hurting these people. This meth and fentanyl coming off the border, the 380,000 kids that are missing at the border because they've been child trafficking and sex trafficking. This has got to stop. And what blew my mind in 2022 was, even after 2 years of that, this was creeping in a pretty detrimental way. And we didn't have a red wave. The electorate did not see it. And so here we are in 2024, and I hope to God there's more people out there that are willing to stick their neck out and try to educate and inform the electorate that these policies are going to hurt the middle class. They're going to hurt you, and we got to stop this. But I know that Musk has come over. Several Schultz, a few of those folks Democrats have come over. So I think we've got a lot of momentum. I think Trump has got the things he needs, and the policy he needs, and the message he needs. We just got to make sure there's not voter fraud on November the 5th here, and Donald Trump gets in the office. But I think there's more entrepreneurs speaking out. There's more Democrats coming over the Republican Party. And the message needs to get out that these policies are detrimental to the health and the betterment of our country.
John, I hope you're right. I hope we see that red wave. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Seth Dillon, the CEO of Babylon Bee, will explain why he donated $100,000 to keep abortion out of the state of Florida's Constitution. Don't go anywhere. Florida's Amendment 4 has sparked a heated debate among conservatives, and the amendment would essentially legalize abortion up to the point of birth in Florida. CEO of the Babylon Bee, Seth Dillon, took a stand against the amendment and donated $100,000 to oppose it. And Seth joins us now. So let's start with that generous donation that you made, and why was it so important in this instance to put your money where your mouth was?
Well, because the biggest thing that's going to make a difference in whether or not Amendment 4 gets passed is whether people understand what's in it, what it actually means, what it entails, what it says. Because the way that the amendment is crafted is very, conniving and misleading. It's intentionally written as this very vague thing that sounds like it's just allowing for abortion up to the point of viability, which, a lot of pro-lifers aren't okay with, but a lot of people think that that's a reasonable thing. And so it has a lot of support when people read it just as it's currently written. But when you actually look at what this means and what the exceptions are and the carve out that's actually in it itself, because what the amendment says is that, it will create this constitutional right for abortion up to the point of viability. However, if a health care provider, not a physician, but if a health care provider deems that it's necessary for the health of the woman, then it would be allowed in other cases beyond the point of viability. But that just raises the question, okay, well, what constitutes a health issue? That's so broad, it's not defined, it's not clearly articulated anywhere. So you can have a healthcare provider, which could literally just be a clinic worker at Planned Parenthood, say that this would be a mental health problem for this patient if they don't get the abortion. So then you have a 8-month-old baby that gets aborted as a result of that, and it's constitutional under this amendment. So that's a problem. It would make it it would remove the parental consent and make it just parental notification. So you could have minors who are getting these abortions beyond the point of viability. So it creates all kinds of problems that are kind of under the surface and disguised and obfuscated by the fact that the language is just very intentionally vague. So my stepping into this and making some noise and donating to some funds that are going to put ads out there is all about education, getting people to understand what's in this amendment.
Seth, could you give the audience the story, the quick and dirty story of the history of this and what's going on with both, Trump and DeSantis and where we are now, where the momentum is?
Well, with Trump and DeSantis has been fighting this. He's been very vocally opposed to Amendment 4, and he is making it known that he is definitely a no on 4, and that you should be a no on 4. And he's putting a lot of money behind some ads that are going to be coming out that are going to be opposing this. But Trump's position on it was interesting because he wavered a little bit when he was first asked about it. He doesn't think that the current 6-week ban that's in place in Florida is good. He thinks that that's too soon, that there needs to be more time for that decision to be made. And he said that repeatedly. He still says that, even though he's now come out against Amendment 4. Initially, he wasn't really answering the question clearly. And he got a lot of pressure from pro-life groups. And we were making a lot of noise trying to say this is something that is radical. And it is not politically damaging to come out in opposition to this. In fact, it's politically damaging if you don't. So we applied a lot of pressure. And I think he listened to that. And now he's changed his position. So now both Trump and DeSantis are aligned in being opposed to Amendment 4.
So what do you think the broader strategy is now in a post-Roe America?
Well, it has to be a state level fight. That's just where the fight is right now. It's the Roe being overturned meant that there was no constitutional right to an abortion. and they threw it back down to the states. And so now the states have to make these decisions about how they're going to handle this issue. And so there's a lot of legislation in place at the state level that varies, and the pro-life movement is fighting to make sure that the law protects life. So they're trying to pass laws or have already passed laws that are more protective of life in a variety of states. But then on the other side, you have the pro-abortion movement and effort that's trying to pass these amendments to the constitutions at the state level to make it a right at the state level. So that's really where the fight is right now, is on a state-by-state basis, we have to fight to defend the sanctity of life and make sure that the most important and most fundamental right that we have, there's a lot of rights that we have that are very important to us, including the right to free speech, free expression, religious liberty, but the right to life is the most fundamental of all of them. And so, we really have to fight for this and make sure that the states are protecting these rights and not giving them up. Florida has actually done a great job of protecting life, and it would be a real shame to see that go away because of an amendment like this getting passed just because people don't understand what's in it.
Well, Seth, I have to say, we are so happy to have you on just because you put your money where your mouth is and your words have a lot of credibility. After writing that check, there's a lot of people who talk a good talk and don't do anything about it. So much respect to you.
Yeah, and thanks for coming up and wanting just coming on the show and also just raising the awareness that you have around this. So thanks so much for joining us here.
We got to make noise. Thank you for talking to me.
We absolutely do. And Peterson, that's kind of just the theme of everything is making noise and making sure that that everything is getting highlighted, as we say, in these last 8 weeks up to the election. Yeah,
I think one of the themes you see here tonight is a lot of people talking about the fact that we're on a timeline and that the stakes really are high. And one thing that's interesting to me is how people are so used to talking about the stakes being so high, right? Every election is the worst election. It's the greatest election of my lifetime. So you can kind of tune it out. But then on the other end of it, deep in your heart, when you look around, that things really are troubling and there's something really wrong with the state of the world. So I think what Seth is an example of is the sort of thing that, in this case, he's an example of the sort of thing that Jack was talking about, which is that if we have 8 weeks, we have 8 weeks, then every single one of us, you can be busy, you don't have resources to give, but you have something to give. You have something to give. It might be your time. It might be going out and helping to register people to vote. But if every single person doesn't start doing that and taking those practical steps, then we will lose to people who want it more.
Yeah, and Blaze Media is definitely committed to providing coverage for the debate tomorrow night. We are going to have everything on Blaze TV. If you want to join us on Blaze TV Plus, you can jump in and join us in the live chat. We're also going to be on Blaze TV's YouTube channel, but Glenn Beck, Steve Dace, Allie Beth Stuckey, Sarah Gonzalez, Stu Bergier, myself, so many people are going to be a part of this tomorrow night.
Tomorrow live, you're going to want to watch the debate here, and you're going to want to start with Blaze News tonight's hour at 7.
Yeah.
And then we'll
7 Central, 8 Eastern.
Yeah. And that's going to be some incredible stuff before and after, just a lot of special guests. It's going to be good times.
Yeah, and because we look at it right now and say, okay, this is the coverage that America definitely needs, because in any amount of time, 8 weeks, everything could change.
Do you want to go listen to the other networks that don't get it? Please.
No. And be sure just to mark your calendars for tomorrow night, September 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to Blaze TV, where you can get all of the uninterrupted coverage. And if you go to blazetv.com/debate, that's a $40 code off with debate. It's the biggest that we've ever done because the stakes are bigger than they ever have been. That's going to do it for us here on Blaze News Tonight.